Hi everyone, welcome to this new video. In today's video, we're gonna keep working with model signatures. Specifically, we're gonna talk about this scenario in which we have a model that can take, let's say, optional inputs. In previous videos, we saw how to enforce the model schema or the schema of the input of the model, which means that if I include an optional or additional column, MLflow will raise an exception. But in this case, we don't want to do that. We want to set these optional columns. So let's get started with some examples. First, I'm going to import the necessary some dependencies here because I'm going to show you the first method in which we are creating the model signature from zero, from scratch, right? So first, I am creating a list of column specifications here, right, as you can see. And let's say that all these columns are required, right? And that's why I'm setting here this parameter equals to true, right? So now we have this other optional column. This is another column specification. And in this case, what I'm doing is setting the parameter required to false. And here I am creating the schema for the input. So in this cell, I'm going to create the schema for the output. In this case, it's going to be only a single column and it's going to be mandatory. Now I'm going to create the model signature by using this class, right? And providing the model input schema and the output schema. And now the signature looks like this. In the inputs, we have like 4 mandatory columns, but in addition to that, we have also this optional column, which is not required, right? As you can see here, because this key is set to false. Now let's create a model. So for this video, I'm going to create a Python model or Python model, which is a feature of MLflow. MLflow allows us to create like custom models using this definition. What we have to do here is to create a class, right, which will represent our model, and use this class from MLflow, right? Inherit this from MLflow, which is mlflow.python.python model. And here we have the predict method. I'm going to talk about this in more detail in a different video, but for now, just here what we are doing is to define the predict method that we typically use to get the predictions, right? For example, when we have a circular model, we do something like model.predict, right, to get the predictions. Now, within this function, you usually have like, let's say, more logic, right, to get those predictions. But in this case, to make things simple, I'm going to just return the input. So this is a very simple model. Now here, I'm going to log my custom model using the Python flavor, because that's how I am defining the model here, right? Now I'm going to use mlflow.python.log model. I'm going to provide the artifact path, the Python model, which is basically an instance of the class that I am defining here, and the signature of this model, which is the model signature that we created with the optional column. And now here I'm just retrieving the model using the Python flavor, as you can see here. Okay, and now I'm basically logging this model, and I'm going to show you this in the interface. So here, if I refresh, I can see this new run custom model with optional inputs. If I go to artifacts, I can see my custom model. Now, if I go here, you can see that the only flavor supported is the Python function, which makes sense because I use the Python definition to define this model. Now I can go here, right? And as you can see here, we have the schema, right? We have these features that are like mandatory and corresponds to the shape of the flower. And here we have this optional column. And as you can see here, it says optional, right? So let me go back to the notebook. Now here I'm going to modify the dataset that I was using before. This is basically the iris dataset, and create this optional column. So what we have is something like this, right? The first 4 columns corresponds to the actual features of the data frame, and then we have this optional column. Now I'm going to use the predict method, right? using the custom model. Now, if I run this, the output that we get, it's basically the same input, right? Because that's how we define the class here. This predict method is basically returning the input, right? And that's what we can see here. Now, what we can notice this is that there is no problem. I mean, MLflow didn't raise any exception because they have this optional column, right? Because it's optional. But what could it happen if I remove a mandatory or required column? Let's take a look at that at this case. So here I am creating this new data frame in which I am dropping a particular column, this one. So now I have a data frame, right, only with 3 columns. Now if I try to use the model, right, that I created before with this dataset, I'm going to see an exception because one of the mandatory columns is missing. So if I run this, as you can see here, MLflow raised an exception and it says that we have this this is required error, model is missing inputs, sepal length. Notice that here MLflow didn't say anything about the optional column, right? Because it's optional, so it doesn't matter too much for MLflow validation. So that's all for this video. Thanks for watching it and see you next time.